The 11th day of Sean Combs' trial began under heavy tension. For days, his attorneys had been fighting to get the entire trial thrown out. Their strategy? Accuse the prosecutors of influencing the jury with damaging allegations, mentioning an alleged arson and the destruction of crucial evidence. But that morning, the judge made it clear the trial would continue. Diddy would face the court. According to the judge, none of the arguments presented were strong enough to invalidate the entire procedure. He went even further, instructing the jurors to disregard any mention of destroyed fingerprint cards. A sharp blow to Diddy's defense team. Inside the courtroom, the tension was palpable. The defense appeared shaken. The denial of the request was more than a legal setback. It was a strategic defeat. Because when a defendant tries to stop the process entirely, it usually means they fear what's coming next, and they had every reason to be afraid. The first witness to take the stand was Christopher Ignacio, an LAPD officer. He recalled an intervention from December 22, 2012. He and his partner were responding to a 911 call. A suspicious home in a wealthy neighborhood, luxury items visible through the windows, and most notably, a black Cadillac Escalade fleeing the scene as they arrived. He memorized the license plate. It was linked to Bad Boy Records. Yes, Diddy's label. There was no crime established at that point, which meant the vehicle wasn't pursued. Still, Ignacio noted the behavior was highly suspicious. There's more. Kid Cudi arrived shortly after in a Porsche. The officer remembered the moment clearly. An unusual scene in an upscale neighborhood, early in the morning. No sign of a break-in, but the situation left behind a strange, unsettling impression. The testimony was brief, but it left the courtroom with more questions than answers. Then came the second witness, and the tone shifted dramatically. Lance Gimenez, a seasoned arson investigator from the Los Angeles Fire Department, had examined a case involving a burned Porsche belonging to Kid Cudi. What he described was chilling. The fire wasn't accidental. According to his expert analysis, someone had cut a hole in the soft convertible roof, then dropped a Molotov cocktail inside. Inside the car, investigators found a burned liquor bottle, a singed handkerchief, a lighter, and a designer silk scarf used as a wick. Gimenez was confident this was a targeted attack. He also revealed the discovery of a partial female DNA profile on the bottle. He admitted he didn't know what it meant or who it belonged to, but the implication hung in the air. And then he dropped a bombshell. The fingerprint cards recovered from the scene, they had been destroyed back in 2012. Not by him, not by anyone on his team, but by someone within the LAPD. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The defense jumped on it immediately. They once again demanded that the trial be thrown out, citing prosecutorial misconduct and irreversible damage to the jury's perception. But the judge was unmoved. He reminded the court that the destroyed fingerprints had no direct link to the defendant, and again ordered the jury to disregard them. 2 attempts to stop the trial, 2 denials, and the court moved forward. But the most explosive testimony of the day was still to come. As the courtroom settled after the chaos surrounding the destroyed fingerprint evidence, a new witness was called to the stand. His entrance felt almost cinematic. Deontay Nash, a celebrity stylist, flamboyant and charismatic, he brought a spark of energy into the room. But behind his vibrant presence, there was a heaviness. Nash made it clear from the start, he did not want to be there. He was subpoenaed, and what he was about to reveal would rattle the courtroom. For nearly a decade, he worked closely with Diddy and Cassie, week after week, year after year. He saw them behind the scenes, away from the cameras, away from the stage lights. He knew their dynamic, and now he was ready to talk. Nash described a disturbing pattern. Diddy referred to Cassie using degrading slurs: bitch, hoe, Cece, baby girl. It wasn't playful, it was constant, and it was cruel. Cassie didn't fight back. Instead, she shut down. She'd fall silent, withdraw, disappear into herself for days. But the verbal abuse was only the beginning. Nash explained that Cassie wasn't allowed to go anywhere without Diddy's permission. He remembered 2 specific times when she tried to go out, once to a gay club with friends, once to her own LA apartment. In both cases, Diddy found out and called her in a rage. The result? Cassie panicked. She packed her things and rushed home in tears. And then came the night that would haunt everyone in that room. Cassie was packing for an event, OVO Fest, with Deontay and a friend named Mia helping her. Suddenly, Diddy showed up at the door. He stormed in, furious, yelling, "Didn't I tell you to answer your phone?" Before they could react, he grabbed Cassie by the hair and started hitting her. Hard. Deontay and Mia tried to flee, locking themselves in a bedroom, but Diddy forced the door open and continued the assault. He beat Cassie with his fists. Deontay did something few had dared to do. He jumped on Diddy's back to stop him. Diddy threw him off. He threw Mia off too. Cassie hit her head on the bed frame. She was bleeding, and Diddy still didn't stop. Then he looked at them and said, "Look what you guys made me do." Then added coldly, "She'll go to a plastic surgeon." There was silence in the courtroom, but Deontay wasn't finished. He recalled another incident in Diddy's house. They were cooking when Diddy came in, enraged. He ripped Cassie out of the kitchen by her hair and started hitting Nash too. "I don't have hair," Nash said bitterly, "so he just punched me." And then came the darkest layer, the blackmail. According to Nash, Diddy repeatedly threatened to release private tapes of Cassie. He would say he'd send them to her workplace, to her parents, anywhere that would destroy her. He said her brother was a bitch, that only he protected her. Nash told him, "But Puff, you're on those tapes too." Cassie, terrified, replied, "He's not. He was filming. I didn't want it." Nash remembered Cassie asking him to help her leave. He drove her to Sunset Boulevard to get a taxi. This was before Uber, he noted, but Diddy didn't stop. He went to Nash's home, furious, paranoid. He searched the house top to bottom, even looked inside the oven. Nash never forgot that detail. "He actually opened the oven," he said. "I don't know what he thought she was hiding." Eventually, Cassie ended up at a hotel. Nash was with her. Diddy found her there too. And what happened next chilled everyone. Cassie threatened to jump off the balcony if he or his people came near her. 4 to 5 of Diddy's bodyguards were waiting outside. A trap, a total surveillance operation, like she was a fugitive, not a woman, a possession. In that moment, the courtroom began to see the full picture. This wasn't just a toxic relationship. It was a psychological prison. And Deontay Nash? He stood there and said it all, calmly, clearly, without fear. He broke the silence that had protected Diddy for far too long. Nash described one moment that stuck with him. Cassie had a deep gash on her eyebrow after another episode of violence. She showed it to Nash on FaceTime. The wound wasn't minor. It was visible. And still, Diddy continued to pretend nothing was wrong. He threatened her again, and Nash said that at some point Cassie just gave up. Not because she wanted to, but because she felt she had no other option. But it wasn't just Cassie. Nash began naming others: Carrie Morgan, Capricorn Clark, Dr. Richard, himself. All of them, he said, had been threatened, hit, silenced, or humiliated. Diddy wasn't just abusive to one person. He was surrounded by fear. And yet, this was the same man who tried to rebrand himself as love, a name, a brand, a lie. Nash, calm but firm, closed his testimony with one final confirmation. Diddy had threatened to release the tapes if Cassie ever tried to leave. He had even told her he'd send them to her family. He made her believe she couldn't escape, and that's when the picture finally became clear. This wasn't just a love story gone wrong. It was a man using power, violence, fear, surveillance, and humiliation to trap people in his world. And as the day ended, no one in that courtroom saw love anymore. They saw the man behind the mask.